So when we get saved, we are told that we are born again and that Jesus washes us clean. He gives us His mind, even His heart. We are told it is this time that we become a new creature and a new creation. But when our old life begins to creep through and interrupts our new life, or the lifestyle the church says that we should live, this is when we are told either 1, we have a sinful nature, or 2, that we need to pick up our cross and die to ourselves daily. We are told Jesus commands us to pick up our cross and that this is the highest calling as a Christian. So if Jesus washes us clean, we are born again and we have become a new creature and a new creation, then why do we need to die to our new creation, born again self? And this is daily. So what's really going on here? What is this death really about? Did Jesus really tell us to do this? And if so, what did Jesus really mean when He said to pick up your cross? And are our desires in normal life something that is involved with this death? Does what we want, dream, and care about, our passions, really matter to God? Welcome to the conversation, friends. I'm your host, Jason Wilkins. This is A Different Lens. Let's get into it. So when we get into this idea of picking up our cross, something to understand first is the definition of it depends on what denomination you are a part of. These denominations or non-denominations differ on its levels of extremes as well. Charismatics have a different understanding than Baptists. Baptists have a different understanding than Methodists. And Methodists from Catholics, and so on. When I was growing up, picking up my cross was communicated to me as denying what I want. My hobbies, my passions, a girlfriend, and sometimes friends as well. Anything I really wanted to do, whether watch a movie at the movie theaters, go hiking, go to a barbecue, go to the lake and hang out with friends, and go skateboarding, somehow felt wrong. And instead, I should be saving someone, praying with someone. Have a prayer closet or a secret place that I should be in, praying and worshiping, to press into God, to be sinless and flowing in miracles and wonders. I was told I needed to become more like Jesus, or at least look like Jesus. And He was fasting and praying all the time, or so that's what they told me Jesus was constantly doing. At one point in my life, picking up my cross was cutting all entertainment out of my life, completely. That meant no movies and no TV shows. That lasted for about 2 years. The idea of a normal life, though, going to college and getting a good career, was not on the table for me. Now, this isn't necessarily what I was told to do, but encouraged to do. Not always with straightforward commands, but with those slight meanings and behaviors, like when you are in a relationship that is manipulative. The person doesn't tell you what not to do, but they act a different way towards you when you do it, so you stop doing it for the peace of the relationship. So how do you know you are really picking up your cross? And if your denomination has the right understanding, then how do you know you are doing it enough? Let's look at the first phrase that gets jumbled in with this picking up your cross. But we are going to look at this in context, which means what was really being said and why they said it and who said it. I have met so many over the past 20 years that when they heard die daily or their cross, they connected it to when John the Baptizer said, "I must decrease so He, Jesus, can increase." We have all heard about these movements or have been part of one, where you have to deny your life and make sure that people see Jesus somehow when they look at you. We have all heard songs that come along with these movements, these mindsets, songs that while they seem positive for believers, was and still is actually harmful for some. Some songs that say, if I was to tell you about my story, it would be about him. Or how about work on me till all they see is you. And these songs can be so freeing if you hate yourself, see your life as a mess, wish you could start over because you don't even want to think about your crappy sinful life. But what if you enjoy what God has given you? You are happy about the accomplishments you have made. For many, including myself, this type of thinking means whatever great accomplishment I did in my own life, it means nothing. My love for my family, any awards I've won, maybe good causes I ran a marathon for, great things I've done for others, and even a great career means nothing. Because after all, who am I? Woe is me. I'm not really good, but bad or sinful and deserve hell. And it's not even about me anyways, not about what I want. He, Jesus, is greater than I, but I thank God that He's good and He's merciful and doesn't strike me down because I deserve hell. Did what I just say disturb you at all? Even a little? Because it should. What if this was your child who you were proud of saying these statements? When John the Baptizer said, I must decrease so he can increase, John said this to all his followers. Let me set the stage for you. John the Baptizer was widely influential. He had crowds following him for years, and he had some pretty devoted followers. Devoted disciples probably have been thrown into jail with him, lived out in the desert with him, probably got into a lot of trouble with the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Sanhedrin with John. They formed a deep connection, a deep relationship. And the whole time, John kept saying, he's not the one. He has come to prepare the way for the one, the Messiah. When Jesus shows up, John says, there he is, boys. There's the one I've been paving the way for. John then puts all his focus on Jesus, and John's most loyal disciples, they asked him, do we still follow you, or do we need to follow him? The disciples have this bond with John. They didn't know Jesus. It would almost be like an insult leaving your master behind, who you have been following for years, built this relationship with, and you just start following another as if your master is not important anymore. And John says something along the lines of, now it's time for you to follow Jesus. I must decrease so he can increase. And we know that some disciples stayed with him and didn't follow Jesus. You see how different this is from what you and I were taught about this phrase, this quote from John? When we start to think about all this woe is me, I need to decrease, I'm nothing important, and we hold it to the gospel that the Apostle Paul preached, and in the gospel's light, we see that we are beloved children. We were chosen for their affection, for them to lavish on us their love, that Jesus gave his life to show us how valuable we already were. You don't give your life for something that doesn't have value. We see that we have been woven into Jesus, and we see that we are seated face to face with our Heavenly Father and the Holy Spirit in Jesus. The gospel lights up the truth that we have always been known before we were born, and reveals who we've always been through the Trinity family's eyes, and reveals that they are right here with us in all of our great accomplishments. And we can actually see that they are the reason for all the good things that we've done in our lives. One week I went to visit my folks, and I went to a church with my dad, to one of his men's gatherings, and a guy got up on stage and said, listen up, men, God doesn't care if you have a good career or not, how many awards you've gotten, how many touchdowns you've had. He doesn't care how many trophies you've won or badges you've gotten in your life. These things are useless to him, and he's probably bored during those times. All he cares about is if you are being a godly man and keeping your family out of hell. This disturbed me greatly. My dad was a football star in school, who oddly enough were the guys I didn't like growing up. I was not the sports kid, I was the other kid. My dad was cool in school, I was not. I never even cared much for football, But when I heard this guy say these words, I got so offended. Then I heard Papa God whisper in my ear, Jason, I rejoiced every time your dad got a touchdown. Every time I saw him excited about the game, it put a smile on my face. Later, I told my dad what God had spoken to me during the meeting, and I had to tell him whether he believed it or not. I believe he did, though, because tears started running down his face when I was sharing it with him. We talk about a God of love and a God who cares about us, believes in us, is excited that we are theirs. And then we say crap like this misguided leader that makes God so distant from us in action and heart, and to me, a bad and distant father. So what is this pick up my cross language that we hear from the pulpits and in songs declaring to die to ourselves until all they see is Jesus? This language, die to yourself, it sounds harsh. During one of my meetings, I brought a good friend up and I asked them to tell us about themselves, to tell us about some of the passions and hobbies that they may have. They started sharing one passion after another about friends and travel and how right now they are into photography, and shared all the things they loved about that. When they were done, I asked them, is all this that you shared about yourself, is it true? Is it true things about yourself? I kept connecting the words you and yourself to the passions and hobbies that they said they had. And I paused for a few seconds and then I told them, now, I want you to die to yourself. All these passions and hobbies you have, I want you to give them up, die to yourself. You should have seen their face, and even the crowd's face. I even hated saying that to them, and the crowd was kind of shocked. I wanted everyone to see this is how we are taking these statements, subconsciously. Have you ever struggled with believing it was okay to have dreams and wants? If so, it's because you took this statement the same way. If you love boats, race boats, or sail on boats, loves hiking, loves concerts, sports, loves traveling, how about loves their job? They don't, because they're dead. This imagery comes along with the words that says anything you desire that you like, you have a passion for, means nothing to God. It also means to many that I have met, including myself, that you wake up every day and you are an enemy of God. Because if you need to die to yourself, then there's something about you that is opposite of God. It is opposing Him. So this teaches us to deny our minds, our passions, our desires. It teaches us not to be able to trust in ourselves and convinces us we are not good. So how could God really love us, even like us? I understand we don't need to trust everything that we feel, and we need to learn how to deal with our emotions more. We need to trust the Holy Spirit guiding us because she knows what we really need. But this mindset that we are talking about says you can't trust anything that you feel, like, or believe in. Passions you have, they could be evil or not worth God's time. You cannot escape yourself, and if you believe this about you, well, good luck. There will be no joy, no peace, and no rest. Scripture shows us that Jesus wants relationship. The Father, Son, and Spirit are a relationship. And this dying to yourself, what we are talking about is no relationship at all. If you have to die to you, then that's not a relationship. That sounds more like slavery. How many times have we heard hanging out with our friends, going bowling, having pizza parties, playing sports, just going and doing normal things is not holy, and we need to deny ourselves because there are more important things to do in the kingdom. So did Jesus really say, pick up your cross and follow me? To die to yourself? The answer is yes. Jesus is recorded in the Gospels 2 times making this statement. Now, how many times did Jesus really say this? Well, once in Luke and once in Matthew. This is important because when you read both statements, both writers talk about Jesus making this statement right before going to the Mount of Transfiguration. So even though we can say this statement is in the Bible more than once, it doesn't mean that Jesus said it over and over again. In fact, the context shows us that each author, Luke and Matthew, are mentioning the one moment the one singular time that Jesus said it. And then this statement is never mentioned again. It was spoken one time, and Christianity has created hundreds of doctrines off of this one statement. If it was that important to know and understand, it would have been all through the Bible. Paul would have mentioned it at least once, and he doesn't. Even Peter, who had some law issues, never repeated it either. Think about what that means, all the movements and all the hundreds of thousands of sermons and studies built on this statement. So let's look at why Jesus said it. And in order to do this, I need to lay some foundation. We need to look at some context. So, 1, what was the mindset of the disciples in this moment? And 2, what was the mindset of Jesus? The Jews from a young age have heard the stories of God coming and saving them. He would be called the Messiah. For centuries, the Jews have been waiting for this day. Every Jewish boy and girl grows up with the stories, the promise that God will come. So at the time of Jesus, they are waiting for the Messiah to come and set them free from oppression, which at this time it was Rome. They are waiting for Hosanna, the God who delivers them by destroying their enemies. So the disciples, they're following Jesus because they believe He is this Messiah. And so they are waiting for Jesus to form an army so that He can raise up and overtake Rome by force. This is what they believed the Messiah would do from the prophecies. So this means Matthew, John, Judas, Peter, and the rest are all following Jesus, waiting for Him to form His army, and they are going to be a part of it. Jesus is behind at this time because He only had one fighter, Simon the Zealot, and Jesus probably wasn't letting Simon teach the others combat. So one day, Jesus is having a conversation with the disciples, and He tells them He is going to be handed over to the enemy and that He's going to die. And Peter steps up and rebukes Jesus. Picture Peter telling Jesus, "You think you're going to die? No, that's not true, because I'm not going to let you die. You are wrong. You are the Messiah. You are the great I am," which you would think is what any good friend would say. This is a good thing Peter is saying. Wouldn't you want your friend to step up and say, "We're not going to die. I've got your back. I'm going to make sure you stay alive. We're going to make it." And what does Jesus say in response? "Get behind me, Satan. For you think the ways of man and not of God." A quick side note, a being that we've named Satan didn't pop into Peter. Jesus is talking about his mindset. He said, "For you think the ways of man and not of God." He didn't say you think the ways of yourself. Haven't we been taught that man thinks like Satan, not that Satan thinks like man? So Jesus is not talking about a being named Satan. He is talking about a satanic mindset, which Satan means adversary, someone who stands against your calling, your purpose. Jesus makes this statement because He's not going to let Peter distract him from his calling and purpose. Jesus doesn't want to die. No one wants to die. But He's not going to let even His friend tempt Him. So after Jesus gets done rebuking Peter, He then has to turn to the others that are following Him, who all have the same agenda as Peter does, and He has to make His purpose clear. And He says something along the lines of, "Listen up, guys. If you were going to follow me, you are going to need to pick up your cross. You are going to have to be ready to physically die, because I'm going to go die, so I can't protect you." Jesus is not talking to you and me, friend. He is talking to His disciples over 2,000 years ago who will be in danger, and in fact, all of them were killed except for the Apostle John. Jesus said this to the disciples who thought they had everything planned out of what Jesus was going to do. He was going to raise His army, and they were going to overcome Rome and then the world with their Messiah, their friend. And Jesus says beautifully to His friends, "Friends, I promise you, if you let go of your life, your understanding, your agenda of why you are following me, if you let it go and you lose it for me, then you'll truly find your life. You will truly find it if you trust me. Even towards the end, they still didn't fully understand because when he died, they thought it was over. But we know that they truly lived. They got to see real life, true life, because they trusted. So if Jesus was talking to them, then where does that leave us? It leaves us as new creatures and new creations, not evil, not an enemy of God, fully children, reconciled to God, fully redeemed. And we have believed some lies, and we created a false identity that you could say is a character, not a real person, but a made-up one. And this made-up person has run your life for quite a bit because of the lies that you believed. And you developed bad habits that formed out of those lies. This is what we died to. This is what we overcome because it's not true of us. It's not the true us. The Father, Son, and Spirit has only ever seen us one way, from the moment they dreamed us up in their hearts. Jesus came to reveal that image. He came to reveal who we truly are. There is no dying to ourselves. No, there is only dying to this false image, this false self, so that we can be our true selves. This is what the Apostle Paul is talking about, this character when he gives us our death certificate in every one of his letters, telling us that we have already died with Christ. So even though we still use this language, it's not really the kind of death religion describes. It feels like one because we are letting go of a character that we've identified with for years. The habits, the behaviors, wills, and emotions, maybe even goals that were pushed on us. And we are now saying no. We are choosing to no longer believe the lies, believe that false image. What is really happening is we are waking up to and choosing to believe what is already true and always has been. Death is the stripping away of anything and everything that is not the real you. We can remember the cross whenever our false self, thoughts, and emotions raises its ugly head. Paul tells us the reason why we still deal with a sin issue, which sin is a sickness of the mind, and we're controlled by lies, and we can't see our true identity. And Paul says, we don't know we're dead. We don't know that the false character is dead, never was true about us to begin with, or we don't believe we are good. Whatever you believe to be true about yourself, you will create that world from your molecular self to your chemical self to your physical self to your neurological self. You will manifest what you feel and think. Paul doesn't want us to struggle fighting this thing. No, he wants us to realize Jesus took care of it so we can let the lies go, the emotions go, just give it back to Jesus and see that we died with Christ. Just learn to rest. So in times of temptation, we don't need to die to ourselves as much as we need to embrace who we truly are. In that moment, we need to rise and we need to declare the victory of the Trinity family accomplished in the incarnation of Jesus. We are the righteousness of God. We are holy. We are perfect. Whatever you need to say to snap yourself out of the lie of the character. Paul talks about being transformed by the renewing of your mind. The more you believe the truth, the more you will reflect it. That's not dying to you, that's dying to a false you. The Trinity family has me working more in this direction in helping others to truly have a metanoia experience, effectively breaking free from our old self, old habits, behaviors, breaking free from strong emotions that have kept us bound, that has kept us enslaved. If this intrigues you, then be on the lookout for my first course called Metanoia Momentum. Now, for a hard but freeing truth, we don't even get our own separate cross. Who benefits from the cross Jesus died on? Is it Jesus or is it you and me? Okay, so what sin did Jesus commit to get his own cross? The Apostle Paul is telling us that he died our death on our cross. Paul also says that Jesus died once and for all, and Jesus declared from the cross it is finished. So if we think there is a cross for us to bear, then we are ignoring the fact that Jesus carried our cross to begin with. You truly are a new creature and a new creation. Rise up and explore this truth. Embrace the truth the Trinity family is woven into the details of your life. They are with you. When you are barbecuing, they are with you. When you are hiking, having a pizza party, hanging out with your friends, they are with you. When you are enjoying an all-night movie marathon, they're with you. Jesus did not come to kidnap your body. He came to awaken you to the relationship that Him, His Father, and Spirit have been sharing and has desired for you to experience from day one when they dreamed you up. You are allowed to have wants and desires, friends. In fact, some of those desires is their heart that they share with you. Thanks for joining me, friends. See you next time. There you go.
He wants to be petting?
I think so.
Hello.
Hey, rabbit.
Gonna bite me?
Don't worry about it.
I told you, Henry.
Just look at him.
Aww,
Babe, I've never seen a rabbit this close.
me neither.
They don't normally come this close.
I know.
He's a fluffy guy. This Alaskan rabbit? Hey friends, we hope you enjoyed today's video. You can check us out every Sunday morning on GAN at 4 a.m. Eastern Time. You can also check us out on demand and watch as many videos that are provided. You can also find us on YouTube under Jason Wilkins, A Different Lens Ministry. If you would like to help us reach others and help support the ministry, right now there's a way to do so through Venmo. If you would like to follow us, check out our Linktree page, where you can find all the links to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and anything else we do coming up, it will be found here. God bless you, friends. The joy of Jesus is yours.